Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to our webinar, How to Reimagine the Dial to New Business Operations. This is going to be a tour into a couple of things, but most importantly, I'm going to be taking the ISO 9001, the 2015 version, and having a conversation, trying to be able to help the business owners today, business work, and everybody to be able to come back into the replay after the lockdown. Again, my name is Kilian Songwe. I am the president at the Global Healthcare Public Foundation and also as chief scientific officer with a lot of experience in project management and management standards and systems. So to be able to get you started here today, what we're going to be looking at is trying to reimagine what's happening. And I start off with these two pictures because I want us to be able to take a journey and come in here. I mean, I don't know that there is any of us who hasn't seen a dark cloud before, or I don't know there is anybody who has never gotten up to a foggy morning. But all of these dark clouds of foggy mornings always go away to something beautiful, and it always depends on how prepared and the level of reimaginations you have for the new day and for what is going to be coming up. So I just throw these pictures in so that we just start thinking and looking forward. But this is where we're going to be going to. It's going to be high speed. Only those with a very clear picture of where they are going to be able to make this journey. So the whole intent here today is to be able to get you to revisit your previous operations and to be able to think about where we're going to past the lockdown. A lot of economies are reopening, and this is just not operations. This is both government, public sector, private sector, small businesses, smaller enterprises. All of them are coming into play today. And as they come into play, it's going to be fast. Only just those who are really determined clearly will be able to make this. So I want to look at quality management systems, ISO 9001, and ISO 9001 actually gives us a very good background. When I talk about the dial into new business operations, ISO 9001 is truly kind of sort of, if I may call it, the godfather to very good operations and ensuring that you're able to deliver both on your product, the service, and the results that the customers are going to want in a very satisfactory method that is going to ensure that they do get what they want to get. So to be able to do this, I'm looking at human resource, the quality aspects, integrations, and stakeholders. But just to be able to start off, I want to look at the standard itself. The standard actually just has 10 very simple, straightforward sections. It says the scope, what are the boundaries of operations that your quality management system is going to be working out of. What are the normative references that you're going to use as a part of your operations to define the business that you want to be in? Terms and definitions. This is really important because different industries have different terms and different definitions, but the employees, the staff, the associates, they all need to be able to understand what is going on. And these things need to be defined so that there is context to what is going on. I have a nice orange next to context and operation because I'm not going to look at the entire standard. I just want to take context and operations, just those two, and where we are in today's business world. So when we talk about context of the organization, there are a number of things we'll look at. Then there is the leadership. If you're going to do anything coming out of the lockdown, you really need to pause. Everything needs to go on pause. And there needs to be some thinking. There needs to be some planning as to what is going to happen. Is it going to be business as usual? Or are you going to be making some changes? Then, of course, the support. What is management supports to the new ideas that are going to be coming out? The whole reimagination, the whole reimagining of the way forward. And what is your operations going to look like? And there are a number of things we want to look at here as to how the operations could change or what you could do to ensure that you are prepared for the post-lockdown period and the whole COVID world and its operations. Then, of course, the standard looks at performance evaluations and then improvements. So just to be able to start off, this is a very simple quality management chart that has been out for so many years, the plan, do, act, and check cycle. Basically, what is it looking at? It just takes the standard and it puts it out in a format that allows you to be able to see where the different clauses stand out. But again, as I said earlier on, I really just want to talk about clause 4, which is context of the organization, and clause 8, which is operations. But when you look at the PDCA cycle, what you see as you look in here at your extreme right or at my extreme left, what you see is organization and its context. So this really looks into what does the customer want? What does the new customer want? The new customer in today's market wants to be sure that you are going to be around for the next pandemic. The new customer in today's market wants to be sure time for them to be able to continue to do their own business. Sure that there is going to be no repeat in the product and services that they have to work with. So we need to be able to ensure that just as you enter into the whole realm of the quality management system, that we know exactly new client of today needs. So we need to be of knowing what the requirements are for our new clients and our new customers, and the expectations that they're going to have of the product, service, or result that we're going to give them. And as that gets into our management system, there is, of course, the planning phase, which is actually just initiating the work that is going to be done. Then the support and operations piece, which is the clause 7 and 8 piece, ensuring that management has the resources that are needed and that there is the right operation to be able to deliver on the requirements or expectations of the clients. Then there is the performance evaluation. This actually ensures that that product or service, before it gets delivered to the client, it has been checked. And then, of course, once it's checked, if there is need for improvement to satisfy the customer better, make sure that the customer comes back again next time, then you can make some improvements. One of the things that we've decided, or at least I've decided to change on this thing, it says plan, do, act, and check. But I figured that by the time you go through improvements to plan all over again, you might just want to do adjustments as opposed to acting, because you've already acted. There's a lot of things that has already gone into a process, into industry and into production. But most important, as you'll see, the right there in the center is leadership. Leadership has to be involved in the planning. Leadership has to have commitment to the support and operations. Leadership has to be involved in performance evaluations to ensure that whatever the service or product is that goes out is acceptable to the client. And then leadership, of course, has to be involved in improvements to see whether the service that is going to go out or whatever the product might be better. So when we look at it again, coming in, we're thinking the customer's demands, the customer's set of requirements, and then we run them through our process, and then we ensure a delivery, which in this, and the product and service, the quality of the product and service is also very important to us as an organization. And so these are the things that, as you reimagine the next model of your business, you need to stop and think about some of these really simple things. What kind of planning is going to go in? What kind of checklist do you want for your new customers? There might be customers you've always had. They're no longer the same customers. They've gone through an episode and now they're new customers, and you need to treat them as such. So we need to revise our customer checklist of their requirements so that we ensure that we have the ability to satisfy them on the outside. So talking about context of the organization, context of organizations is really simply an arrangement of entities, whether they're departments or they're people that are aimed at accomplish a very specific purpose. So you could have an organization such as ours, which main business is to be able to support organizations, develop management systems, improve their quality of service so that they can enhance the satisfaction of their customers. So we have arrangements that we have people, we have department, and our basic intent is to ensure that our clients get the right kind of management systems developed in their business operations so that they thereby are able to improve the expectations of their customers. So when we look at the context of organizations, there are generally two parts to context of organizations. There is first and foremost the external context, which is everything happening out of your immediate control. It could be external workforce, experienced workforce. You're competing against multiple nations. You're competing against a different set of experiences. People who are coming in with international experience, quality issues, customer satisfactions, different customers with different rates of satisfactions, versus what is actually going on internally to your organizations. And you might have the advantage of technology. Today, as we come out of the post-lockdown and we're looking at the world post-COVID, technology is a really big thing, and there's a lot of talk now about internet security. Everything that goes into cyberspace goes into the cloud. You need to think about that. You need to think about how that's going to be developed and how your organization is going to be able to withstand this. International commerce. International commerce is no longer going to be the same. Lots of people used to go to the shops to pick up things. A lot of people are going to now order online. Social values of your organization, what is the ecology of your organization, and what are the elements of legislation that might affect you internally. So when you look at the context of the organization, there is this very simple, nice Pestile chart that has been out for so long. I think ethical is new to it. It just talks about what are the political issues you need to consider going forward. There are lots of governments that are making very important changes, and a lot of those changes are going to be good for a lot of local businesses. So we're going to start reducing the amount of imports. So that means that locally industries can develop. E for economy, S for social, what's going to happen socially, technology I mentioned earlier on. What's going on in our very environment? What are we going to do with our environment? In the very first 60 days of the lockdown across the world, there was a study that showed that our general environment had actually gained tremendously. A lot of the carbon emissions had actually reduced tremendously from the lockdown. No planes, no cars moving, nobody moving, all of those. We also need to look at the legal environment, and new to it today is the ethical environment in which we're going to be working at. When you look at this put together, you're actually going to be making a decision about the threats and weaknesses of your organization going forward. This will be important because as you begin to reimagine the direction in which your organization is going to take, you absolutely need to know what are the threats and what weaknesses do you have that could either help you propel or allow you to be able to take opportunities for investments going forward. And this is something I took out of McKinsey and Company, but this is a very simple structure that allows you to look internally and look strongly. And I chose to talk just about the hardcore part about it, the structures, the systems and the strategy that is required for you to be able to go forward. The soft side, the skills, the staff and the styles of your organization, those are things that you could actually work on to be able to ensure that your organization is ready to be able to reimagine into the future. But when you talk about structure, you're just basically looking at what are the different ways your business can go on, what are the different units or organized structures that your organization needs to have to be able to lead into the new era. What systems, what processes and procedures do you have? Are you going to need to make changes to them? What are your daily activities going to look like? What changes do you need to be able to make to those systems? Then, of course, there is a strategy. You need to be able to have a plan. As you begin to reimagine the direction of your new operation and your organization, there needs to be a very clear plan as to how you're going to go if you want to be competitive. Then, of course, there is the issue of shared values, and the shared values actually balance out between what's the hard stuff and what's the soft stuff between your organization. Literally, you're going to have to look at what are the norms and standards that guide your employees' behavior as we go forward and we reimagine our organization in the future. This is, I don't want to be cliche about this, but this is really, really important if you're going to reimagine the next direction for your organization. You really have to do the SWOT. You need to think about the strengths, you need to think about weaknesses, you need to think about opportunities and the threats, and very simple questions that you need to answer here. And you need to do this in a really concerted effort. What do you do well? What do you do well? What have you been doing well? Is this what you're going to continue doing well? What could you improve on? Most probably your business is going to get lean. What are the things you could improve on? Now you're going to have your human resource working remotely. What opportunities are there? What opportunities are open to you as you reimagine? You used to be an alcohol factory. You used to make liquor for drinking, and now you're going to be making sanitizer. There's a new opportunities. What are the threats that you have? What threats could harm you as you rethink? Now, this is all about positioning your organization to be right there at the competitive edge as you go forward. And you really need to be able to do this. So needs and expectations are always going to be around. We need to be able to understand what's happening. The fact that interested parties are a number of people may have on the organization in terms of the quality of the product, service, customer satisfaction, statutory and regulatory requirements, requires that the organization should determine who their interested parties are, because once they can determine who their interested parties are, then they can ensure that they have a management system that responds to their clients and actually meets the expectation. And so I threw in this chart actually, and this is really important because we're talking about needs and expectations of the interested parties. And we're looking at the stakeholder satisfaction, who are the stakeholders, and then we'll look at some of the stakeholders going forward. So you have right up the top there, fast, right, cheap and easy, customers and intermediaries. These are the stakeholders. They're looking for what they want. But then trust, loyalty, profit and growth is really what they're actually looking at. And when you look at the stakeholder satisfaction, and as you go down there and you look at the stakeholder contribution, between stakeholder satisfaction and stakeholder contribution, this is really important in trying to shape your business or your organization as you move into the future. I just go down to the last row there, and it talks about returns, reward, figures, and faith, and you're talking about who are your investors if you're out there trying to make money. But what is the stakeholder contribution to the capital? They need credit, risk, support. What is actually going on? So there needs to be a very good balance in this area, and there needs to be a very good understanding of who your clients and your customers are. But as we move to the next slide, this is what is actually even more interesting. We're now looking at needs and expectation of interested parties, but we're now looking at power play versus the influence greed. And this is something that as you do your SWOT analysis, you're going to have to sit back, look at it, find out between the interested stakeholders and their influence on the business, on the organization, in what direction you're trying to go in, people who have the authority and people who can actually influence the project. You want to be able to know them, and you want to be able to put them in the right quadrant so that you can actually attend to them as the organization continues to build and reposition itself for the next phase of things. So you look here again now, this is another quadrant here. So in the first one, I was looking at influence versus interest, and here I'm looking at influence versus impact. Again, they're very different things, and you want to be able to appreciate that you have people who are going to be influential, and those people who are influential who can actually create impact for your organization going forward. So you really want to take the time off as you begin to reimagine where your organization is going to go to think about, do you want people associated or interested parties who have power and influence? And do you want associated parties who have influence and impact? And you want to be able to find them because they're going to be in the business environment, and you want to know who you want to pull towards you as you move your new ideas and your new imaginations into the next business round. And this is really going to be helpful. So I have this little assignment which I really like for people to look at. It says this is an assessment matrix for stakeholders, our interested parties. And our interested parties, really, some of them could be unaware of what our organization is actually working on, yet they're associated with us. They might be resistant to some things that we're trying to do. They might be neutral, no impact. They might also be very supportive, or they might be leaders in the industry. So we need to actually have a perfect assessment grid for our stakeholders. And the nomenclature D stands for the desired engagement. So if I had a stakeholder, I have for different stakeholders, in this case, my desired engagement for stakeholder D is I want him to be a leader. I want the organization to be a leader as I partner with them to do business. And for stakeholder 2, I want them to be neutral. They have influence. I don't want, they have the power. I don't want them to really do much. I just want it to be known that I am in partnership with them. Stakeholder 3, I want them to be supportive. Stakeholder 4, I also want them to be leaders. So when you look at this, and I'm now going to take you to the next slide, this is what I have when I do my stakeholder analysis. I find out that my stakeholder 1, my desired position for stakeholder 1 is leading. And their current position right now is leading. So I'm very happy with my stakeholder 1. Very happy. I have him on my top right-hand quadrant. He's very satisfied. I am satisfied. But stakeholder 2 is unaware of what I'm supposed to be doing. I would like them to be in a neutral position, but they are not. So I have some work I have to do to be able to move stakeholders 2 from their current engagement position, unaware of what my reimagination ideas are for the organization, into a neutral position. Stakeholder 3, same thing. Stakeholder 3, their current position right now is they're actually resistant to my new ideas. And I would actually like them to be supportive, which means I have to actually pay attention to my stakeholder number 3. I need to spend more time with stakeholder 3 and be able to gradually increase their engagement so that they actually come up and they understand my logical thinking into where we're taking the organization so that they can become supportive. Stakeholder 4, my desired position of stakeholder 4 is I'd like them to be one of the leaders. But right now they're in a neutral position. This is a stakeholder I cannot afford. They have the influence and they have impact. I can't afford to leave them in a neutral position. So I need to work on them to be able to bring them into the same position as my stakeholder 1. So my desired intent for them is for them to be in leading. Right now they're neutral. I need to work on them to be able to bring them over to leading so that I could have both my C and my D in the exact same place. Now, this is an assignment which you must do as you prepare to remove your organization into the next dream. You have to ensure that all your stakeholders are actually where you desire them to be. You need to be able to move them from wherever their current position might be into where you would desire for them to be. So determining the scope of your organization going forward. The scope must be examined and defined. You really need to know the boundaries of what you're going to be working on. You could not be a jack for everything. No, you're going to have to decide on what you want to do and then be very specific. What are the boundaries of where you want to be? And then you think about what are the internal and external issues? What is going to affect you from the internal and external context? Who are your interested parties as you are rethinking your business scope going forward? But then as well, you also want to be able to understand what are the legal and regulatory compliance obligations around your rethink and your reimagination. So all of this has just been looking at, now I have some big ideas. I'm trying to reimagine my organization. There is some internal thinking that has to happen. I need to do a proper SWOT analysis. I need to be able to look at my stakeholders, figure out where they actually are currently and where I would desire for them to be. That assessment needs to be done. And then I need to think about what are the resources that my rethink and my reimagination is going to need to move. So all of that behind us, then we go into operations. Operations is clause 8 of the ISO 9001. And I pick the clause 4, which is the context of the organization. and operations, because those two really go hand in hand. The other things like leadership and support and evaluation and improvement, you would have to do those things, but you really need to ensure that the context in which you're operating, the context in which you're trying to move your reimagination to, and your actual operations actually come into sync. So just to be able to look at operations, you're not going to be operating your new imaginations in a silo. You're going to be working with suppliers. Suppliers have inputs, there are processes that are going to be involved, and then there are outputs, and then with all of this, then you have to deliver to a customer. You might actually be a service organization, but you're still going to need suppliers who will provide to you elements which you need to put through your quality management system in your own organization to be able to ensure that the output and the customers are both satisfied. So as we look at this, therefore, the reason why I have this way is you have to come up with a list. What are your suppliers? What inputs do you expect from those suppliers? What are the processes that you'll have to go through with each of the suppliers to be able to get the desired outputs? And how do your customers appreciate those outputs when they actually get to them? So to look at the next part, this is exactly what it looks like schematically. You have suppliers. They're going to have to give you a certain requirement. It could be another product which you need to put into your system to be able to come out with the final product, or it could be part of your service. Once you receive it and you process it, you have to give feedback to your suppliers so that they could either improve or they could sustain what they're giving you. And of course, this is going to have a relationship to price. You do your processing, then you have an output, and the output gets handed over to your customers. Now, the job isn't done because it's handed over to the customers. You now need to follow up the customers and be sure that they're satisfied with the service or product that has been given to them. You need to do a survey, you need to have a conversation with them to be able to see where they are and what they're going to accept. And then now you go back into the processing and see what you need to tweak to be able to ensure the continual improvement of your customers and satisfaction of your customers. So you have a requirements list, you have a measurement list to be able to ensure that you have some kind of control in terms of what is going in terms of input. Does it meet the quality expectations that you want it to meet? The requirement list from your customers is very, very important, because as you process, you're going to be processing against the customer's requirements. Because when the customer gets the service or product, they're going to have a measurement list which is against the list they gave you at the beginning. So when you rethink your organization going forward, you really need to come up with this list. You really need to know, what does the customer want before you even get into engagements of providing service or trying to deliver a product to the customer. Then you measure out how the processes are going to ensure that you deliver them. You check it against the customer's requirements, and then you hand it over to the customer. So the operational plan and planning and control, basically what does it look like? It says you have to define your processes. If you're going to reimagine your organization going forward, you really need to think about what processes are going to be involved. What are going to be the criteria for you to be able to have the right product or services? How do you meet the acceptance criteria for release of the product or service? And they're always going to measure you against their customer list. So the organization needs to determine what resources they're going to need, and then keep records of how those resources actually perform in delivering the intended service or product, because those records are going to be able to help to form part of your evaluation criteria for you to be able to improve or for you to be able to make corrections when the time comes, or if there is a need for that. So requirements for products and services before rethinking and reimagination is where every business is today, every government is today. The public sector, the private sector, they're all rethinking, they're all reimagining where they should be or what they can do to be able to move into that realm. But before we get into trying to offer any product or service, even what we've been offering before, and think about what are the new requirements? What are the new requirements in today's age What are the things that people are going to prefer to have? What are the things people want to add on as benefits to the same services they've gotten before? Requirements for the products and services need to be properly defined as we go forward so that there is a good understanding between the customer and your organization. Basically, we're now looking at design. In the design phase, if you're actually going to deliver a product, you really have to think about what is involved in the design phase. There needs to be a very careful planning, and there needs to be very careful verification and validation of each of the design phases. So if you're going to actually say, for example, you had to deliver a house to somebody, you really need to make sure that from the bricks, there is a proper verification on the bricks that are being used. There is proper validation of the stress that has actually been put into coming up with the columns in the house, so that when the customer actually comes to the house, they are actually satisfied. But now you really need to spend some more time ensuring that the verification process meets regulatory standards, the validations are traceable, and that the customer finally is satisfied with what they get. And when you look at external providers, this is very key, because the customer comes to you, the customer knows just you. So if you're going to have to deal with another supplier, you have to make sure that there are criteria for the selection of your suppliers. You have to ensure that there is a criteria for measuring the quality of service that they're going to give you, or the quality of the product that they're going to be giving you to add on into your quality management system, to ensure that as the organization moves forward, that you could actually deliver a product or service that meets the customer's expectation. Because you can't go to the customer tomorrow and say, oh, by the way, I bought this from organization X. That's why it has a small problem. Customer X or customer Y came into business with you, and they came because they expect a certain level of satisfaction. If you cannot deliver on that level of satisfaction, believe me, they're going to move on. What I know coming out of the lockdown, a lot of businesses are beginning to reimagine their new direction. They're beginning to rethink how they want to do business. And therefore, what that means in very simple language is competition is going to increase. And if you don't hold your customers, provide the extra benefit to your customers, then you're going to have to be run away by the competition. Control. Basically, what you're looking at is the processes, the product, and the services to be provided. That has to be controlled. Approval of methods, the processes, and the equipment that is going to be used, you need to ensure that they are up to standard. Competence of the staff. You want to make sure that the employees that you're using, that you have, are competent enough to be able to deliver on the product or service that the customer is going to need. And then just before you release the product or you go out to deliver the service, make sure that the verification and validation has been done on every piece of the activity before that is done. Product and services provision, just make sure that they are under controlled conditions. You make sure that you have to that you can control every piece of what you're going to be doing. Ensure that whatever comes into your organization that becomes a part of your processes before delivery, you have the best control by it. Then, of course, you want to make sure that you're compliant with all requirements. That's a very important factor to have. And just before you release whatever the product or service is that you're going to take out, you want to be able to ensure that it conforms to the requirements, first and foremost, of the customer. Requirement list. As you reimagine your business going forward, you really want to think about what are the new requirements for the customer today. The customer doesn't just want a computer. Today, the customer wants a computer that is fast, it's very robust. And so you need to be able to make a very good distinction between the quality of the computer that you're going to produce and the grade of the computer that you're going to produce. That becomes really important because the customer wants a quality computer, not just a grade A computer. And then this is a question that has gone on for many years. What's the cost of quality? The cost of quality, it's huge, and it just depends on what industry you are in. But if you think about the process of having the process of having to find out where the error came from. That's a huge cost. That's a huge cost. If you're trying to produce whatever the service is and you're supplying a service to 400 different businesses out there, let's take something as easy as you're providing a service, a sanitation service. You're going around and you're cleaning office buildings. And incidentally, you have a reagent which creates an irritation on the skin. That's massive. You're going to have a very big fallout from that. So the cost of quality is very, very important to look into. You must actually, conformity to requirements must be verified. Non-conforming output needs to be corrected before it goes out. Because never take advantage, never assume that the customer would not find out. Your product or as they received the service, but in a few hours down the line, they're going to find out this is not exactly what they asked for, or this is not exactly how the service should have been delivered. So when we look at the quality management of products and services, there needs to be a quality plan, which basically to demonstrate compliance with the requirements and the standards. There needs to be performance of a quality assurance methodology. Basically, you're going to be auditing the quality requirements. That's what you'll be doing in quality assurance, making sure that the totality of the product, when it is delivered, actually satisfies the customer. And then certainly you'll have controls. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I think we just had a little challenge with the internet. Sorry for the short disconnection there. So I was just talking about quality, control the quality of what is going to be delivered. You have to make sure that you monitor, monitoring and recording of the results of the service and a product that you're going to deliver is actually kept because for more of the results that you keep and as more monitoring as you do, the higher your chances to actually be able to improve on the service that you're actually going to deliver. And this is really key for your business going forward. Now, as you reimagine your new organization, you're going to have to think about the human resource. There is no way you're going to reimagine your organization without thinking about your current staff and the future staff. You need to think about roles, what responsibilities the old staff or the new staff are going to be taking on, required skills, what direction do you want to go in, what skills are going to be required, reporting relationships and creating staffing management plans. But I think one of the big things that is going to have to be taken into great consideration is virtual teams. And virtual teams, we've really come to appreciate them now coming out of the lockdown. And there are many advantages with virtual teams. And as you reimagine your organization going forward, this is an area of huge opportunity. Because when you think about virtual teams, you can think about setting up an organization and you could have people now, you could have somebody actually working for you and they would be out of India, Australia, Europe or the United States, and they really don't have to be with you in any geographical area, which means all of a sudden, when you think about your internal context, you could certainly expand your internal context without actually having to move anybody to where your physical location is. You could add special expertise to the organization because of virtual teams. You could incorporate employees who work from home offices. You could form teams of people who are working different hours. You don't have to have everybody in at the same time. Include people with mobility issues or limitations. And you can move projects forward that would otherwise have been ignored because of travel expenses. You can't leave from one country to the next country. Flights have been shut down. That would have been a business opportunity lost. But now with virtual teams, you could actually engage different businesses in different parts of the world. So your human resources, this is another place where retooling, retraining, relearning is going to become very important as you reimagine your business going forward. And then operational planning, improvement of our credibility. This is really big as you go out. What are the benefits of your rethink, and what are the benefits of taking your organization into your reimagined, the whole reimagination process? Improvement of customer satisfaction, better process integration. As you reimagine your new business, you're going to have to integrate different models, and the whole structure I spoke about earlier on, the strategy that is going to be involved, the structure that you're going to use to be able to carry that strategy out. You're going to have to do some integrations. Improvement of evidence for decision making. Now the decision making doesn't have to go up the hierarchy. It could be lateral. Creation of continual improvement cultures. As we said earlier on, the style of the organization is going to be really crucial. The culture that you're going to maintain, the norms that you have is going to be key as we go forward. Engagement of employees. So as I come to an end of thinking about how do we reimagine our organization, and how do we dial in to ensure that we have the right sets of tools in our toolbox as we reopen and start our businesses and rethink and rechange and reform the business. These are some of the real key important things. And as I said, I only looked at 2 clauses in the standard. I will be very glad to have a conversation with you about the other 8 clauses of the standard at a later time. But going forward, I never want to end one of these without telling you to continue to stay safe. Wash your hands, liquid soap, running water for at least 20 seconds. If that's not available, try to sanitize, continue to wear your face mask. And most important, all of those 4 things does not eliminate social distancing. We still need to continue to keep our social distancing. That's very important for us to be able to curb the transmission of COVID-19 as we go forward. My acknowledgements, thanks to the ISOs, the group of standards, McKinsey, and the 9001 Academy. Again, you could please reach us if you have any questions around reimagining your business going forward. We could help you. There is a number of management system standards out there which we could really help you build on and ensure the quality management system structures of your organization, whether it's 9001 or it's 27,000 or 14,000, whichever one it is. There is a number of them, management system standards out there, which we'll be very glad to work with you to be able to strengthen your organization and your business going forward. Again, you could reach us by email. You could call us. We're just a jingle away. Facebook, our website. And for those of you who are in the East African region, we're right here in Uganda, 12 Makindu Lane. Thank you. At this point, I will pause and take some questions, comments, or any suggestions. Any questions coming up? Anybody with some ideas or suggestions, or somebody who started a business and they like to see where their business is or how they want to move it forward? Anybody with some ideas, some very big dreams that they want to share with us? Okay. Hearing none, I would assume that this was well delivered. And for me, my parting shots would be, look at your interested parties, come up with a proper power versus influence chart, influence versus impact chart, and scale your interested parties, assess them, make sure that you have them where you want them to be, because that will be very important for you to ensure that all your reimagination, your rethink, and the things you're trying to get your business to do or your organization to move in, you can actually be able to dial into those and dial in comfortably and take your organization to the next level. Till then, next, I wish you well with your organizations, and I wish you well as you reimagine your organization and the new things you're going to be doing. Till then, take care of yourselves. See you same time, same place.